Truth seekers 88 were locked in tight. Ain't no chains, we know what's ours. Standing on God-given rights, ain't hiding behind bars.
They spin stories, but we see through. Digging up facts, calling out what's true. No trolls, no noise, just the real deal. Unmasking the lies they try to conceal.
Kicking it with the truth seekers 88. Hanging with the crew, locking in, feeling great. Knowing all right, standing strong, ain't bowing down. We prove them wrong. We bump straight, never lose our way. Truth seekers stand tall every day.
Stacked, gold in sight, a legacy built on truth and might. Debunking stories, taking no spin. Turn the mic up, let the truth begin.
When times get tough, we hold the line. A tribe that's real, we became a family in time.
Need a hand, you ain't alone. Truth seekers make this place feel like home. Moon high, signals clear. No fear, only truth up in here. Turn it up, let them know. Truth seekers on the show. Kicking it with the truth seekers 88. Fire in the chat, no trolls at the gate. We bomb straight, never hesitate. We stand as one, we lift, we rise, we elevate. Kicking it with the truth seekers 88. Fire in the chat, no trolls at the gate. We bomb straight, never hesitate. We stand as one, we lift, we rise, we elevate.
Hey, welcome, everybody. Sunday night, 9/18. What a wonderful song the Empress of Music at Truth Seekers created. Definitely hearing it for the first time tonight, but wow, good job. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
And yeah. Oklahoma in the house, Boomer Sooner, right? All right. We definitely got some weather events on the horizon. It turned mildly warm here where we are in North Carolina and to right out chilly last night and right into today. I mean, the high was like 74, but we're already below. We're in the 50s now, and heading towards what I understand is about 48, 49 degrees, if not a little more, a little lower. But you never know. If you don't like the weather, in a lot of places, just wait 5 minutes is what they say, right? What a crazy time. It's good crazy and bad crazy, right? But we got to take the good and the bad together and chin up, right? A lot of tough love being passed around recently. A lot of folks, I won't say a lot, but I definitely can see conversing with the sheepdogs and looking at X that even some MAGA people are starting to wake up to what's going on. So it's making it pretty interesting. We're going to keep the vibes high tonight as best we can. But we're definitely going to run down through there the recent live, um, some details from the recent live that Empress did, and so on and so forth. Uh, it has been quite the weekend for a lot of people. A lot of people are getting notices from different um, debtors, okay? Because remember, April 10th, they're no longer the creditors, okay? The banks are no longer the creditors. It's been flipped. And all you have to do is stand up and know that is the truth, and we have to start speaking it into existence, right? And that's we're going to talk about the different levels of law tonight a little bit once we get going. But let's say hello to Mr. and Mrs. Sheepdog. How are y'all tonight?
Doing good, Mike. It's hot here in Texas, but my plants are starting to come up in our little garden, so I'm excited
Sweet.
about that. Yeah, but doing good. Glad to be here.
All right, Sheepdog, what's up, man?
Yeah, in Texas, we go from winter to summer. That's it.
Right.
That's true.
you get winter for a couple of weeks. Huh?
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful day. I found some what's those, blackberries or
Yeah, blackberries. Hmm.
I found some bunch of blackberry bushes and stuff along the road, and you know that's pretty good. But glad to be here. Hope everybody had an amazing weekend, and I hope you didn't allow the propaganda arm of the military-industrial complex, MK Ultra psyop, get to you like it has been getting to me. But you had to step away from the shit show every now and then and look around and see how beautiful everything is, and realize that all that shit's already over. It's just got to play out.
Right on, right on. Right on. I agree with you, Sheepdog. It's got to play out, and the reason it has to play out is because we have some sheep still, um, par for the course. We don't need to blame them, um, and it's definitely not us against them. We need to do the best we can to knock out divisiveness wherever we can. That's why we're talking so much about the religious aspects of things. And you know, we did a Telegram live on Saturday, which I'll have the replay up on the .com tonight. I got it downloaded so I can upload it pretty quickly after the show. And then hopefully Sheepdog and them will get it up when they can on Rumble as well. But it was a good Telegram live. We talked about the real ID extensively and some other things. We had some people step up to the plate and say some good things, and some good conversation happened, and we had people open up and share too. Let's just say that real ID is being pushed right now. And it ain't nothing but the Patriot Act 2.0. Sheepdog, I think, described it a while ago, on steroids, right?
Yep.
It wasn't done for the people. It was done for the establishment to benefit the people and to continue the tyranny. All right. So the real ID, basically, folks, you want to stay as far away from it as you can. If you already have it, please be sure you're working in a trust, and it's something that you can add to the trust. All right. Until it expires. That way you can maintain control over it. And remove a lot of the liability. Okay, that's what the irrevocable trust is for. Is to remove that liability from your living being that was put on you by the state and by the federal government. You're no longer wards of the state as of April 10th. And we just have to stand up to it. They're not going to freely let us know that. but the legislation was passed. Okay. I'm getting ready to share something now that I really want to get in and get started with first is the hierarchy, the world hierarchy pyramid. Okay. The Empress described this as a totem pole, right? And it's really detailed, folks. And I should have this saved to the site tonight so that we can share it out everywhere. It has to be hosted so it can be shared out. Right now it's just off my computer. But this is the hierarchy pyramid, the world hierarchy pyramid. Comes with a beautiful letter. This was done in 2023, all rights reserved by Dylan Luis Monroe. Okay, and produced in partnership with Ashtar Command and the Legions of Light. All right. And they got up there the Deep State Mapping Project, World Hierarchy Pyramid, and it says, the letter says, learn to read the map. Our world is built on hierarchical systems of power, control, cults, and controllers. This food chain of power extends all the way off planet and beyond the dimensions that we can visually perceive. Many versions of such power pyramids have been created in the past by other authors, but this world hierarchical pyramid aims to be the most comprehensive illustration of hierarchy ever created. Judeo-Christian and Gnostic concepts of the higher realms are presented in contrast to each other on either side of the peak of the pyramid. The names of the terminology of these two incongruent mythologies may also have analog, right, or analogous counterparts in Eastern philosophies. The rigid hierarchical system, which is a modern day caste system derived from more ancient ones, runs in diametric opposition to the concept of individual freedom and the so-called American dream. It is a world built on blood oaths of silence and mass deception. One may escape this system, however, simply by reclaiming their own sovereignty and their birthright granted by God. The malicious forces achieve dominion most easily by persuading subservient beings into offering their consent to be dominated. A disobedient slave can quickly become a dire liability. Free will is a universal principle, but one must not forget that even God's natural world can be just as savage and unforgiving as Satan's hell matrix. So let's dive into tier 1. It's the bronze tier, which is right here. I believe that's the bronze tier right here on the bottom. Okay. It's the general population, the ignorant masses. The ignorant masses live out their lives in a totally unaware, dreamlike state, enhanced by psychoactive medications and highly developed EMF based on behavioral modification technologies. All right. In other words, Sabrina Wallace and the Wi-Fi deal, right? It's all done through the Internet of Things, which includes us, right? Humanity suffers from mass MK Ultra at the hands of intelligence agencies and the secret clubs controlling them. The normie who actually believes what he sees on TV perceives the highest level of ruling authority to be the UN. Propaganda is not questioned. This aggregate is considered livestock to the carnivorous reptilian extraterrestrials and hybrid noble families. Notice it said hybrid noble families, okay? So your sleepers are there delved into the bronze tier, right? Tier 1 at the bottom of the totem pole, if you will. It's got the matrix down here. 9-to-5 slaves, sheep, cattle, NPC, maskers, useless eaters, zombies, goyim. Remember, that's what the pretend Israeli people call us, right?
Synagogue of Satan.
Yeah, synagogue of Satan, absolutely. Breeders. Breeders is down here. Let's see what else is. Satan's hell matrix is included in down here. Worker ants, right? Then we got the bread and circus. Remember Project Bread and Circus? We got football as one. Also known as arena gladiator games, right? All professional bail sports. Notice I didn't say ball sports. I said bail sports, right?
Basketball, football, and baseball.
Right?
Right? My bell.
Oh man, that's a good one, shoot dog. I have to remember that one. Then we got religions, right? Is next in the bread and circus. Heavenly rewards for obedient serfs, right? So religion is man-made. There's a lot of truths coming out about religion. There's a lot of truths coming out about the Jesus strand and the whole story there. They're hard to swallow, as we well know. We're not going to get into a lot of them right now. And then we got the medical tyranny, right? The lethal extortion racket, right? Lethal extortion racket, medical, population reduction, aka family planning. They have created family planning as a cover for true genocide, basically, right? Then we got the good old government, right? Rigged voting systems in the government, career and blooding. Let me see here. Let me get a little bit bigger. Here we go. I can see that better. Career and bloodline politicians, military, police, and prisons. Okay. All of which are in the private sector, pretending to be in the public sector, right? Judges and lawyers are in the next block. So we got legalese, right? Legal versus lawful. In this particular bronze setting, the legal is in the lower part of the totem pole. So you got lawfare, titles of nobility, and anybody who says they're an esquire, right? Which is most lawyers and attorneys. Then we got academia, right? Education. The gatekeepers of the intellectual status quo. All right. That's where everybody's been getting dumbed down, is the indoctrination camps called universities and public schools. And in some cases, because of religion, private schools, right? Mass MK Ultra hypnosis, media, propaganda dissemination, behavioral programming, idol worship, entertainment, social media, alt media, and Hollywood. And now to add fuel to the fire, we got good old Netflix over here, right? Good old Netflix. Social interaction, substitute, brain rot of the nation, right? Nobody's really binge watching anything on Netflix. If you are, you're getting programmed, is what they're saying, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Then the next tier we got, right. All that includes world population control. All right. Then the next year we got the corporations, banking, insurance, banking and insurance companies, credit card companies. We got big pharma. That's a big talking one there. All of them are really. We got big tech. Okay. Better known as a technocracy. Big agri. Okay. Agriculture with all our fake food, right? GMO to death. We got the energy sector, the real estate sector, and the communications sector, which includes smart grids, consumer goods, and shipping and mining. That's all included in the corporation section. Then we got that's considered world resource control systems. It's the crony capitalism and the nepotism, right? Only the family are approved. In other words, blackmailed or part of the pedophiles or so on and so forth. Y'all get the picture. We're not going to try to be too ugly. All right, and then we got the world financial control on the top tier of the bronze sector, which is all at the bottom of the totem pole. World financial control, world institutions, okay, on the other side, better known as the IMF, the World Bank, and the BIS, World Economic Forum, and the stock markets, central banks, tax revenue, and dividends. All right. Hedge funds as far as the institutes go, we got hedge funds, the UN, the EU, the WHO, the NATO versus BRICS, right? NATO versus BRICS, okay? And BRICS is nothing but the real NATO, okay? The NATO that they present to us is the one they want us to know about, not the one that truly is. Same thing goes with the UN. You're going to learn that about the IRS too, all right? But we'll go deeper, okay? So that's all tier 1. Tier 2 is silver, is considered silver, secret societies and think tanks. The secret world order is divided into 2 wings. The Hexagon Group, comprised of the Freemasons, the Khazarian Mafia, controls the political, financial, scientific, educational, and media realms. The Octagon Group is the fortification of the Hexagon Group. Its military strong arm orders of knighthoods streaming from the Templars and Knights of Malta fill their ranks. Now decorated with high military titles and in possession of nuclear launch codes. Both groups work towards the New World Order. Special nations, Israel and Switzerland, are safe harbors for these globalist white-collar criminals who secretly worship Baal as they claim to have the authority to create international law. All right. So let's go look at the silver. Okay. The silver chart, starting at the bottom, has international law, right? Just mentioned. It's got the black market, the cartels, the mercenary armies. The MS-13 is included in that. The triads, the Androgdiga, Indrangeta. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. There's another one I can't pronounce there. And don't forget, everybody's going to get this. But these are words that you can go look up, folks. So if you can just go look them up. Also, it's just not thrown together for anything. It's been researched and put together, obviously. That includes the mob, the Rotary International Club, the labor unions, the chambers of commerce, the Lions Club, the Master Mason, which is 3rd degree, 2nd degree fellow craft, and the entered apprentice at the 1st degree in the masonry. International assemblies, protocols, agreements and tribunals. That's all part of the international side. European Court of Human Rights, International Criminal Court, World Zionist Organization, Geneva Convention, the quasi-masonry, right? Which is the actual masons that have dealings with construction. The Bilderberg Group is the next level up, which all stems from the Hexagon Group. You can see Hexagon Group right there in the bold right there. It's known as a political wing. The Octagon Group is here. BlackRock obviously has many different angles. Okay. Shared that with folks last night too, and I need to go do that tonight as well. But there's several different angles. Come on, hit the right page. There are several different angles to the BlackRock group, and this angle right here is very important because it ties right into their ability to, the black cube of Saturn, right? All right, it's global occult worship. BlackRock is not a company, it's a control interface, all right? You were taught to follow money, but BlackRock doesn't make money, it moves it. Like a sorcerer moves a wand. You thought it was a financial firm. It's an AI-powered governance algorithm known as Aladdin. It's an AI-powered governance algorithm known as Aladdin. That's the name. That's not fiction. It's their actual system. Over 21 trillion flows through it. It reads your bank, your pension, your mortgage. It decides who gets funded and who gets deleted. Aladdin isn't just software. It's a sovereign AI fed by every market tick, trained on every economic decision, weaponized by silence. But who owns BlackRock? That's the riddle. Because BlackRock doesn't own anything. It manages everything. On behalf of those who never appear on any list, private trusts, Vatican vaults, intergenerational councils, ownership is a decoy. Control is the payload. You're not supposed to ask who programs the programs. You're just supposed to believe the market is neutral, that capital is blind. But capital isn't blind. It's ritual, it's blood, and it's code. BlackRock is the black cube, the Saturnian finance, reality orchestration through portfolios. Your retirement isn't yours. Your data isn't yours. Your vote isn't absorbed. It doesn't need to rig election. It rigs the world before the election. Let me read that again. It doesn't need to rig elections. It rigs the world before the election. This isn't capitalism. This is coded colonialism. And now you've seen it. This isn't a company. It's a sigil. It's the lock. And we just cracked it. All right. So that's BlackRock, folks. That's the clean-cut look at it. AI-powered Aladdin system that controls the world finance but owns nothing, right? They have a CEO that said we, the chattel, would own nothing and be happy about it. Well, if you're working in the private with an irrevocable trust, you can absolutely achieve that. But until you wake up to the fact that these financial firms are posing as nothing more than a means of control and an algorithm for which they do it through. Does that make sense, Mr. and Mrs. Sheepdog?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Well, it don't make
absolutely.
It is.
Right.
So MS-13's on that list, so they're all a part of the club?
Yeah, they're all part of the club.
Well, shit. I thought they were, man. Let me find out.
Right?
Damn.
Yeah, they're all part of the club. The Hexagon group and the Octagon group, the military wing, all of them.
Son of a.
The CIA, the MI6, the Mossad, the service soldiers, the intelligence agencies, mind controlling the masses. The Secretary of Defense is included. The Postmaster General is included. The Color Revolution, all part of the same group that is included MS-13.
Yeah,
and the triads too. All right, so we got the neutral nation, the military the neutral nation known as Switzerland, We got the military industrial complex. We got Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, the North Group, the GO, the Leonardo Spa, the aristocracy knighthoods also. Sovereign military of Order of Malta, the Yorkish Rite, Orders of Knights Templar, the Order of Knights of Malta, Order of Red Cross, the Royal Arch Masons, Most Excellent Masters, Past Masters, Mark Masters, the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police. The police are in that group too. They're all working together, sir.
Yeah, it's the Blue House. Blue, back to blue, baby.
Right. The Shriners, the Jesters, the York Rite, the Masonic structure is all included, right? Along with the Scottish Rite. And then we got the there's a couple I can't read. The Grotto, I couldn't read them if I made it bigger. There we go. The Grotto, MOVPERs. All right. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but you can look it up, folks. Everything on this chart is you can look up. Tall Cedars of Lebanon are included in this group. CERN is included in this group. They're scientific institutions, national and international. Jason Society, Soros Group, the philanthropic foundations, the paramilitaries, the Ria Chatham House, Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock, Khazarian Mafia, the Media Empire, and the international councils. The Grandmasters, the Olympians, the Illuminati, the Grand Wizard, world prime ministers, the Fuhrer, that robbed the swastika, right? The Nazi Party, the Fourth Reich, the New World Order is included, the Prairie of Sion, esoteric Freemasonry, the House of the Temple, DC, world's richest, most powerful subfamilies, the techno-fascist world controllers, ISIS, Ra, and El, also known as Israel, right? Israel. That's all included in the second tier known as silver. Let me make this smaller so I can read tier 3. Let's go up here to tier 3. Tier 3 is the gold. It includes the priesthoods and the bloodlines. Who curates the mind control exerted over the most powerful cults in the world? The priesthoods, the leaders of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. There are older cults preceding these, for a king is believed to be anointed by God, and ancient priest kings were studied adepts in the dark arts. Covens of warlocks and witches lurk in the darkest shadows of the royal ranks. Titles of nobility are a prerequisite to hold any authority in navigating mankind. There is a degree of contested supremacy between the Jesuit, Venetian, Islamic, and Asian dragon royal families. That is tier 3. So let's go take a look at tier 3, which is gold right here, right? All right. I mean, there's a lot of thought put into this. All right. At the top of tier 3, we've showed this chart before. This part of the chart before, where you have the Pindar. All right. This chart doesn't include the POTUS, who happened to be the third seat under the Pindar in the chart that we showed you. So there's a small change. It's the Pindar and then the Council of 13. I wonder how many people are in Trump's administration, right? We'll see. World's richest, most powerful families. The priesthood of Amun, the more the Merovingian, I'm really not sure how to pronounce that word, bloodline, the Druidic Council, the cult of Baal, the Gray Pope, the Synagogue of Satan is included in this one, the Black Pope, Jesuit Superior General, the elite occults, the Zoros, the Zoroastrians, the werewolf clans, the Temple of Set, Thelma, Opus Dei, Satanic Night Circle, the Vampiric Orders, the Church of Satan, the Vatican White Pope, the Divining Serpent, National Council of Churches, the Kabbalist Talmudic Jews, Order of the Garter, the Round Table, the Holy Roman Empire, Sovereign Grand Masters, Mormon Church. Oh, imagine the Mormon Church being above those, in that group. The Supreme Masonic Rite. The Supreme Masonic Rite is also found in the Mormon Church. Spiritual law, okay, and the Pineal Gatekeepers, which is pushed and powered by canon law. The Shabbat, the Sovereign Grand Masters. I've said that before. The Papal Bloodlines. Okay, they're all there. I can't pronounce half of them. I'm going to keep going, but the Papal Bloodlines are all there. The Jesuit universities, the Jesuit Order, Society of Jesus. Oh my goodness, not the Society of Jesus with the Jesuit Order.
Yeah.
The Jesuit Council. Go ahead.
Jesuits are the ones that run the script on everybody.
Yeah, especially when it comes to Jesus. It's right there in black and white, and you can look it up. We've shared it before. The Jesus in the Bible that was resurrected was a damn clone. And people can scoff at me and call me all kinds of stuff, but the truth is the truth.
Yeah, they turned him into a Roman soldier.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
And he votes and everything. He was anti-government before.
Yep.
He said, "Give Caesar's what is Caesar's." Now we're like, he's like collecting taxes and shit now.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. And Sheepdog, we didn't see it either, but once we did, you can't go back, right?
That's right.
The Sharia law, the Order of the Melchizedek. Okay, we did a good piece on the Melchizedek order a good while back. The House of Saud, right? Go ahead. Did y'all want to add something on the Melchizedek?
No, I just think it's funny that you're saying Sharia law, and I hear a lot of people complaining about it, but they don't understand that.
Right.
They're all on the same team.
Yep, they sure are. We got the witches and warlocks, the masters of witchcraft, the black magi, the Asian dragon families, the shogun, the daimyo, and the samurai, the House of Windsor, the Bushido Code, the Church of Scientology. Oh, imagine that. I think a lot of people knew that one, though, right? OTO, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Okay, we were told that the Astor family was one of the families that were on the Titanic, but they really weren't. That was the story that got twisted and told. Because the Astor family is one of the top bloodlines in the Illuminati. The Bundy family. Remember Ted Bundy? Right? The Collins family, the DuPont family, the Freeman family, and here's one a lot of people have a hard time with, the Kennedy family. The Onassis, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Russells, The Romanovs. Oh, imagine that. Van Dunn, the Krupp, and the Reynolds.
Mike, did you
Imagine
say
that.
Pam Bundy?
I did say Pam Bundy, but her name should be there, right? Oh man, but Pam Bundy, that's crazy. Not Pam Bundy, but Pam Bundy.
Bondi Bundy.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah, yeah. Her and Pete Hegseth would make the new Married with Children sitcom, right?
That would be funny.
He doesn't swing that way, Mike.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Pete's got the wrong idea.
Her middle name's Joe for a reason.
Right? Oh.
That's a joke. In case somebody's name's
Coats of
Joe.
arms. Yeah. The coats of arms, titles of nobility, the Archduke, the Duke, the Prince, the Marquis, the Count, the Earl, the Viscount, the Baron, the Chevalier, and the Esquire. The Chevalier and the Esquire. Law of the sea and admiralty law and maritime law. Imagine that. The 3 city-states run the world: Washington, D.C., Vatican City, and City of London. All of that form the gold tier, tier 3. All right, let's go back down and check out tier 4. All right, tier 4, cults are formed around closely guarded pacts and covenants with off-world entities who often share guidance or technology with those whom they select to lead humanity. These off-worlders come as both solid flesh and bone beings, as well as astral and etheric spirits. Among these, there are ones who have lost contact with Source. They've lost contact with Source, okay? And live by vampirizing other life forms. They create systems of enslavement through mind control, lawfare, and numbers. There is a higher authority, God's army comprised of angels, but where universal light and dark meet, spiritual battles ensues. That's all tier 4. The Tektite tier is also known and is right here. At the bottom of tier 4 is Satan. You can look at 2 Corinthians 4.4. Sheepdog, can you pull that up for us right quick? 2 Corinthians 4.4, right?
44.
Yeah, 44. We got the Anunnaki, the Draco Reptilians, the Dark Fleet, systems of law and enslavement, physical. Do what now?
Oh, sorry. I'm just reading it.
Go ahead, read it.
And this is so true because this is where we're at right now. 2 Corinthians 4:4 states that the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. This verse highlights how a powerful unseen force, often identified as Satan, actively works to prevent people from recognizing the truth and beauty of the gospel. The gospel is described as the light of God's glory in Christ, who is presented as the same image. So it's talking about the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers.
Absolutely. That is so true, right? We got Inky and Enlil. Wow, that's really that. Wow, I had to make a note there. All right, so we got Inky and Enlil here. We got the Draco Reptilians, the Anunnaki, the Anu, systems of law and enslavement, Baal, El Mammon, warlords, Orient Empire, the Giza Intelligence Group, the fire gods, also known as Moloch. Off to the right there, we got mankind. Then the animals, natural law, plants, minerals, etc. Okay, we got systems in violation, universal tribunals on the left side, 3D physical world, a solar warden, and ancient astronauts. Ancient astronauts, okay? This in the middle right here, if you can see my cursor, we got the detachment from source circle right here, which brings you into the physical realm, right? Exile programs are dark AI, gestures. These are all being exiled, right? Transdimensional ETs, nanonites, the Borg and the Phalanx, the sea nobility, Noabites, the Chimera, the Demerge, the extra-dimensional entities, Archons, and a couple other weird ones. The deceivers are all in this circle. The astral parasites, the demons, the ghosts, the smokeless fire, right? Smokeless fire, imagine that, right? These are all have become exiled and barriers of time and space. Their detachment from source is noted. And it's also how mankind got detached from source, because we fell out of the circle, right? The Galactic Codex, logos, the Davis or Devos, the Shonen. Do what now?
Davos.
Davos. There you go. Thank you.
Like Davos, Switzerland, where everything's at.
Yeah. Universal free will is included in this, and the Council of Elders. Karma. Imagine that. Karma's a bitch, right?
That's what I heard.
Yeah, 144,000. The neutral forces, non-physical common law. Okay, and we also, they got some side notes starting tying in here. On the right side, we have God right above the feudal system. It says the eyes of those who do not believe are made blind by Satan, who is the God of this world. 2 Corinthians 4:4. Absolutely.
That's why it's called. Sorry, that's why it's called. It blinds the eyes. Can you read that again?
The eyes of those who do not believe are made blind by Satan, who is the God of this world.
Satan, yeah. So it makes you blind. He put the veil over you. That's why it's called the veil. Devil. The veil, the veil hasn't been lifted.
Absolutely. And then they include off to the side here Genesis 6:1 and 2. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took for themselves wives of all whom they chose. All right. So we got God, the feudal system, the king, the nobles and lords, the knights, the tradesmen and merchants, and then the peasants, as it starts to reach the top of the pyramid, the gold tier. Okay. Over off to this side is the Jesus strand, right? God, Jesus, the Pope, the cardinals, the archbishops. It goes deeper into the gold tier, right? The archbishops, the bishops, the priests, the deacons, the monks and nuns, and the laity. All right. Let's see here. We got the Thaumaturge kings. I don't know if I Thaumaturge kings. Okay, sorcerers of the arcane sciences and esoteric arts. This is hard to read because it's in a lighter font. Magical blood, perform miracles, and heal others by the laying on hands. Widely considered holy, enlightened, clairvoyant, and anointed by God. King of the world, which is a Latin term, creator of the corrupt 3D world, a soul entrapment matrix. Imagine that. Okay. And it goes on, and we'll get into more of it as we go on. Let's get into the next tier. Tier 5 is the angelic realm. God is the unknowable supreme being, the one that the lower gods claim to be, but are not. God is the light, he who giveth life, for Satan is that which taketh away. Okay, I've said this many times. You think God has deemed somebody's life to be removed from the earth, then you're sadly mistaken. All right, it is proven over and over again that God, the one true God, the creator of all things, gives life only. For it is Satan is that which taketh away. God inhabits all life forms and minerals in his kingdom at all times. And God's audience are high orders of beings composed of eyes, tetrarhamphoric heads, and layers of feathered wings. Wheels within wheels spin in his presence, opening portals into all timelines for God to see. This is an incomprehensible realm, many orders of dimensions higher than that which you experience in the 3D. All right. That's tier 5, the angelic realm. All right, and then you can go over this. We're gonna go over this. We got the angels at the bottom here, the archangels, the principalities, okay, angel princesses, and so on and so forth. It gets really hard to see unless you have it on your own computer, and it gets really detailed when we get up here. The eye, right? We got the eye of Ra. The Gnostic sects, the realm of light, and the Polyamora, the unknowable supreme being, God. These are all this whole side is about the Gnostics and the derivatives of it. Let's see here. We got the Holy Spirit. Angels are depicted with wings, but they are purely spiritual beings that do not have a physical body. They can take on the appearance of man to better communicate with humans. All right. There's a war in heaven. The lineage consort aspect of in the different realms. God, the creator, then the father and the mother, right? And the child. It's a balanced equation. It's a balanced family, right? It's known as the nuclear family. The light bringer, the mythos, and so on and so forth. We got, you really need to take your time and go through this part on your own and, use your discernment and look things up, folks. This is how we found a lot of things that we didn't know before, right? And it can sound confusing if you can't see it for yourself, but you can go look this up for yourself. Every bit of it works out. I mean, you find a lot of stuff when you go through this chart on your own, except for pronunciations of some of these words, right? Well, at least that's been for me. I can copy them and look them up, but I really don't know what they mean unless I look them up, broke down syllable by syllable, right? But that's the world hierarchy chart. And, I wanted to start there. tonight. And the Empress went even further and broke this down that I shared recently into a simple chart as it applies to law. Okay, the hierarchy of laws, universal law, which deals with energies, main principle. Whatever energy you put out must come back to you. Okay, every energy you put out returns to source. Natural law, deal with the natural ways of all objects and beings which have manifested in the third dimension. You are literally manifesting each and every day, right? Really billions of times per second. Go ahead, speak up.
We're going to get into the three-dimensional 4D here later on tonight as well.
Oh, okay, cool. The laws of Maxim, also known as God's laws. These laws come straight out of the Bible and are the highest laws of the land. They are rights given by God to all beings and cannot be taken away by anyone. Okay, the laws of Maxim. Basically, you're looking at your trust law there, right? Wouldn't you say that's a good way to say that?
Yes.
Sovereign is next. Human being, a being that is a master of self, operates under God's laws and has the ability to create laws and constitutions for itself and corporations that it creates. Okay, so the Empress was real poignant to make out that we as human beings have the right to create corporations, but the corporations in the past have created the Constitution, and it should be the other way around. Does that make sense? Yes, Derek, master of self, absolutely. Corporations cannot create constitutions. Only the creators of the corporation can create constitutions. No other way to put it, right? Then there's contract law, all right? A set of laws which sovereigns worldwide adhere to in commerce, okay? We happen to know that all the contract law we have right now is fraudulent. Got to start over. Scratch deal, right? Decentralized. And then we got treaties, all right? Laws made between two sovereigns that deal with a particular tract of land. All right, so when America was created, folks, from Turtle Island and Tartaria in some areas, right? But it was really Turtle Island before anything. They had treaties with the colonizers, okay, the people who were trying to colonize the land. All right. Unfortunately, those treaties didn't get followed. All right, they got broken in it when we got the two different constitutions. The only reason why the indigenous aboriginals agreed to a constitution was to satisfy and bring peace. So they thought, right? And nothing that didn't happen. All right. And we've gone into with the indigenous aboriginals, the Cherokee and the Moors, right? And so on and so forth on that. So then there's treaties, and they come before Constitution. Constitution are laws created by a sovereign that govern a corporation created by a sovereign. All right. The corporation, a dead, fictitious entity, operates under the laws of the Constitution developed by the sovereign, does not have the ability to create laws. The corporation does not have the ability to create laws, can only create codes, statutes, and ordinances. Federal codes, codes which govern corporations within corporations. Okay? and I still haven't figured this out, which includes the UCC. All right. I still hadn't figured that out until just the other day. All right, which include the UCC codes. You go back to the April 10th articles and public notices from Texas about the UCC filings and all of that. You will figure it out pretty easily, right? 8 US code 18, I think it is. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong. If you know it off the top of your head, I'll go look it up in my notes and post more about it later. But it says that the federal government is responsible for all debt for which it created. Right? The state is telling you that they don't use the UCC codes. They're getting ready to stop telling you that. The universal code, right? All right. Almost at the very bottom, but not quite at the very bottom, is the police, corporations, and agents. Private agencies of corporations they belong to, equivalent to a private citizen. That's police, corporations, and agents. They're private agencies of a corporation they belong to, equivalent to a private citizen. And then you have the citizen, a slave of the corporation to which it pledges, does not have rights, only has privileges which are given to it by the corporation to which it pledges. All right, that's the hierarchy of laws. Universal law, natural law, which is right there with God's laws. Then you have the sovereign, which is a human being, a being that is master of self, operates under God's laws, has the ability to create laws and constitutions for itself and corporations that it creates. That's where we are. When the action figure Donald Trump got on stage in 2017 and gave the power back to the people, if we'd only known then what we know now, right? We would have never had a 2020 election. That's the way I see it, and that's the way I'm calling it. Because we are sovereign and we're taking it back. We're standing up. We're claiming our birthright, right? Just like the letter said. Yes, the federal government creates the debt, not us as sovereigns. The corporations. Yeah, go ahead, you dog.
The debt belongs to them, unlike some people say, especially your new White House press secretary, when she was talking about the college debt and student loans, that those kids are going to have to pay their bills and stuff. And then she said, we're $36 trillion in debt. No, the corporation is $36 trillion in debt. We're not in debt to nothing.
In debt. That's right. We're not even debtors. We're creditors. They made you believe they were the creditors. The banking institutions were the ones that would give you credit, right, and keep up with your credit score and your credit ups and downs, your red marks and your green marks, right? No, it's our turn to be the creditor. We should have been all along. And they are the debtors. It's time to flip it. Cheating said I didn't sign shit.
Right.
Right, I'm right there with you, Cheating. Oh. So I wanted to go through that tonight to kind of give you an idea of how things are flipping. Okay? There's a ton of narratives out there, right? And, you know, we all still want to think that we're good guys, bad guys, but really we're human beings. And there's some that are awake and there's some that aren't. And there's some that are part of the elites and pretend that they're doing it for the people that are either awake or asleep. Right? Nothing could be further from the truth. They can't ever get outside of themselves when it comes to the world hierarchy. Right on. I'm right there with you. Okay. I will get this hosted on a website and send it out in a Bitly link. I'll do it through Bitly. It's free that way. But Alley34 says a copy of this world hierarchy is sold on eBay, which it is. Makes me sick to think of it. I didn't think I could be shocked anymore, but part of this did shock me. Yep, absolutely. Right there with you. Right on, cheating. We got to do what we got to do now, right? Our Father said, here's the soul. You are free. And then we found out we're not so free, right? We got to do whatever we got to do. Let's just stand up, use your voice chakra, gain the knowledge, and put it into action through voice. Tell them who they are and stop letting them tell us who we are. Right? I am who I am, and I'll not ever be who I'm not.
And
That's
what
right.
we owe.
Go ahead, Sheepdog.
Yeah, they tell us who we are and what we owe.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. That's a real good point, Sheepdog. Thank you for that.
Yes.
With that, I'm going to yield to the sheepdogs, and I'm so grateful for the time that I was able to share with you tonight and the information I was going to show. I'll get it hosted over there and get you out a Bentley link, and so y'all all can have it at no charge. Go ahead, sheepdog.
Yeah, I wanted to go ahead, and since we're talking about the 36 trillion, I wanted to point out this is what was said, and this is what we should reject. I'm going to play a 1 minute clip here where she talks about the student loans. And keep in mind, she owes hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans herself. So it's really hypocrisy that she's even making this announcement when she herself is in debt. Okay, let me go ahead and play this.
In other news, the Trump administration has announced we will put an end to Joe Biden's illegal student loan.
First off, Joe Biden's gone. That wasn't Joe Biden. Nice try, though, and y'all continue to try to sell us that bullshit. On top of this is Trump's 100th day back in office when he's really on his 830th day in office.
Bailout attempts. No student loan has been referred to collection since March of 2020. That comes to an end. On May 5th, the Department of Education will resume involuntary collections for borrowers with defaulted federal student loans. The student loan portfolio controlled by the federal government is nearly $1.6 trillion. But fewer than
Well, that's how much money you send to Israel.
4 out of 10 borrowers are in repayment. This is unsustainable, unfair, and a huge liability for American taxpayers. Debt cannot be wiped away. It just
Y'all heard that?
ends up getting transferred to others. So why should Americans who didn't go to college or went to college and responsibly paid back their loans pay for the student loans of other Americans? The Trump administration will never force taxpayers to pay student loan debts that don't belong to them. Student loan borrowers need clarity, and we're finally giving it to them. Borrowers will now be clearly expected to repay their loans, and those who default on their loan obligations will face involuntary collections. The government can and will collect defaulted federal student loan debt by withholding money from borrowers, tax refunds, federal pensions, and even their wages.
Weaponized.
America is $36 trillion in debt.
America's $36 trillion in debt. There's your propaganda. This is the bullshit.
The corp is. Not us.
Not us. I'll put that shit on me. See, it's okay to, you don't want to pay the kids college tuitions, but you're okay with sending trillions of dollars overseas to other countries for wars. That's cool though, right? And we have to pay that bill. But you're not making an announcement here saying we're not doing that anymore, are you? No, you gave $1 trillion to the Pentagon. You gave $1 trillion to Israel. You gave billions of dollars to Ukraine and with weapons and small arms. That's okay. But damn it, if you go to school and you try to and pay those high tuition costs on top of the fact that the government gives the colleges billions of dollars, which I don't know what they do with it. If the government gives the colleges billions of dollars to function, then why are kids paying tuition?
To drain us.
Here
To
again,
train us. Yep.
she's pushing this propaganda that we're what?
And even their wages. America is $36 trillion in debt. We must.
Wrong. Nice try. Take that Smith-Mundt Act 2012 propaganda somewhere else. On to a lighter note, we're going to talk about the Real ID, and I want to let it be known that the Real ID was started in 2005, but it was green-lighted by Trump in 2017 or 18. Let me see where that is at. Down here. Nope. Give me 1 second. We're going to get into the Real ID. We're going to get into... hold on 1 second. Give me a second. So I can show you who green-lighted this Patriot Act 2.0. Issuance of Real ID compliant documents to citizens, which citizens equal slaves, of the freely associated states. How are you going to say citizens and then say freely associated states in the same sentence? So on December 17th,
Right.
2018, when everybody was asleep, President Trump signed the Real ID Act modification for Freely Associated States Act, Public Law 115-323. This act amends the Real ID Act of 2005 to authorize states to issue full-term Real ID compliant driver's license and identification cards to slaves of the Federated States of Micronesia, Republic of Palia, and the Republic of Marshall Islands. Never heard of them. Collectively known as the Freely Associated States of the FA or FAS, who have been admitted to the United States as non-immigrants pursuant to a compact of free association who meet the free identification requirements of the Real ID Act. We're going to go into the Real ID. Thank you, Mike, for bringing that. That was really good information to actually pan through that instead of actually just scrolling through it like other people do.
Right on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That was good. So here we go. So they've been trying to push this Real ID thing. This was 4 years ago. We're going to share this and how it affects, how it correlates with the medical. Like we said in the chat last night, I know that when you went to the DMV, you only had to provide certain documents, but in the future, if you don't have a Real ID, at some point, you're not going to get medical attention.
If we let this go so far, yeah.
We all go and get it. If the majority of the people go and get it, then it's going to get worse, unless the people stay in their ground and realize this is a national ID. This is the same thing as Nazi Germany. Here we go.
Thank you for joining me today. My name is Twyla Braze. I am president and co-founder of Citizens Council for Health Freedom. And today I'm not here to talk with you about COVID-19. I'm coming to you with Real ID. Now, some of you may wonder why an organization that focuses on health freedom would be concerned about Real ID. But we look at this card as a national ID card, and it will become a no card, no care card. So in other words, a national ID card that would become a single number for which all sorts of things, including your access to health care, it will be used for. So without this card, eventually, if enough people get it, without this card, the government could say you can't access.
She said if enough people get it.
Yes.
Then we're going to go into this draconian system.
Healthcare services. So let me just tell you a little bit of history and tell you why I'm bringing this to your attention today. So the history of this is that in 2005, a few years after 9/11, Congress passed this law in the dead of the night, truly in the dead of the night.
Dead of the night.
U.S. Senator Lamar Alexander called it a national ID card and warned against it. But the Congress went forward on a bill that was labeled tsunami. It was about tsunamis. So it was really very hidden. Well, then what happened is that the federal government issued regulations. The states saw the threat to their state driver's licenses and their constitutional rights, their 10th Amendment states' rights, and they started passing laws, many unanimously on a bipartisan basis against complying with the federal government's Real ID Act. And for many, many years, that's exactly where that stood. In 2007, 2008, 2009, state legislators said, yeah, no. We are not going to take the Real ID. It cannot be imposed here. The governor can't do it. The legislature can't do it. It can't happen. But then in late 2015, the Obama administration came up with a very clever idea. And so they started to announce that if you don't get the Real ID, you will not be able to fly. And they heralded this idea.
Doesn't that sound familiar, guys? Isn't that what the main Mockingbird media is telling us today? The propaganda arm of the military-industrial complex?
Yep.
If we don't get it, we can't fly.
Everywhere, and the media helped them. And so the American people became very afraid that they would not be able to fly, and they put pressure on their state legislators, and their state legislators started to cave. And so one by one, legislators decided to comply with the Real ID law. However, most states have given people a right to have a standard driver's license instead. And so I want to tell you several things about the Real ID. One, you don't need a Real ID to fly. That's the first thing you need to know. You don't need one to fly. And I have right here from the Department of Homeland Security the actual language that says.
She's got receipts for the Walmart employees.
Says you don't need it to fly. Here you go. It's right here. It says DHS, that stands for the Department of Homeland Security, notes that individuals without a Real ID compliant document will still be able to enter federal facilities and board commercial aircrafts. So you can still fly. And you know that now if you have been to an airport and you have looked at one of their signs about Real ID, where they actually tell you that if you need a Real ID.
Keep in mind, this was 4 years ago. Kristi Noem and all them have basically fast-tracked the Patriot Act 2.0 on steroids.
Or other acceptable documents. That was not talked about during the 2 years where Real ID was being imposed state by state back in like 2016 and 2017. They didn't talk about that, but they're talking about that now because so many states are having a hard time putting the machinery into place to make the Real ID happen that they are very concerned that people will end up at the airport on October 1st of this year without a Real ID, and they won't be able to fly, and it will be a disaster at airports around the country. So they're actually telling the truth now that you can have other types of documentation. So I'm going to show you some of those other types of documentation. Here's a whole list from the Department of Homeland Security. There's an entire list. Now, what most people will do is they'll get a passport or a passport card or perhaps an enhanced driver's license. Now, you might be wondering why should you even be concerned about the Real ID? Oh, or maybe the first question is, why am I bringing it up? I'm bringing it up because there's a brand new campaign out of the Department of Homeland Security to get you to agree to the Real ID rather than a standard driver's license and using a passport to fly. So here's their campaign. It's called Be Your Real ID Self.
Remember Kristi Noem's video? We're going to go over that here in a minute. Same thing, right? Be your real ID self. Is that, I mean, am I not, when I show up in person, is that not identification Why do I need a card to prove I'm standing in
Yep,
front
that's
of you?
yourself.
Why do I need a card to prove to you that I'm a living being standing in front of you?
Your real ID self. This is the latest Homeland Security campaign to get you to take the real ID instead of a standard driver's license. Now, I told you that states were concerned about states' rights, and so I'm just going to show you this letter from the Pennsylvania legislature to President Trump back in January 24th, 2017. Here you go.
There's the letter, and then just a few months after that, I just showed you what he did.
I'll show you that bottom part. I'll read that to you. It says, opposition to the Federal Real ID Act in Pennsylvania has been based on the following concerns. And they have 4, but I'm only going to read the first one. And the first one is called states' rights. States have been the exclusive regulator of driver licensing and have instituted their own regulations and policies regarding the issuance of licenses and safety information and other aspects of transportation policy administration. Then they go on to talk about the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment establishes that, quote, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, end quote.
If this is a republic, then states' rights has to be in play.
Then they say this one sentence. By federalizing driver licensing, the Real ID Act usurps this power, which has been reserved to the states.
Yep.
Well, with all the pressure from DHS, with all the pressure back then when they were saying you can't fly, even Pennsylvania has agreed to the Real ID Act, but that doesn't mean that you have to agree to have a Real ID. And this is why I'm bringing you this message now, because the push is on to get everybody to get a Real ID, and I have reasons why you should decide not to. And those include, not only is it a Real ID card, not only is it a violation of states' rights and therefore your individual rights, you have to understand that it was established by and designed by the federal government. And it has to be approved by the federal government. This truly is a national ID. We've never had one in this country. And
federal overreach is what this is.
The more people that choose to get a Real ID, the more likely it is that businesses and governments around the country will start to demand the Real ID. And then we will truly have a fully implemented national ID card in this country. The more people refuse to get the Real ID card, the more difficult it will be for them to require it for things like, I wrote a list here, banks, government, clinics, hospitals, business, hotels.
Banks, governments, clinics, hospitals, hotels. That's where the medical part comes in.
A firearm, everything you could think of.
Firearm.
Will eventually require the Real ID if enough people choose it. This is why you should not choose it. You can protect states' rights, individual rights, your privacy, your freedom. Keep yourself from being tracked under this one national ID number. All of that you can do by choosing a standard driver's license, a standard identification card. Choose to not purchase the Real ID, which does tend to be more expensive in addition.
Oh, it's more expensive?
So the last thing that I'm going to say about that is, yes, you can fly without it. And your freedom means, protecting your freedom means saying no to a Real ID. Oh, and
Again, this was 4 years ago. However, we have fast-tracked and put this federal overreach Patriot Act 2.0 on steroids.
But it all still applies.
Yeah. You want to know why Trump's connected to 9/11, 45-47? Patriot Act.
The law says that the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security has unilateral power to decide additional official purposes for which the card will be required. So right now it is federal buildings, flying on commercial aircraft, and nuclear facilities. But whoever happens to be in that position of Secretary of Homeland Security could decide, It needs to be used for medical care. It needs to be used to rent a car. It needs to be used to rent a hotel or to, stay in a hotel. It needs to be used every time you go into the bank. That's what the law says. And when the states bow to the federal law, and if more and more people actually get a real ID card instead of a standard driver's license, that's where we'll get to. We'll get to this being required for every transaction and then a one number, one tracking number for everyone in this country. So I encourage you to say no to the real ID, to see what the federal government is doing here, and to make a decision that protects your freedom, your autonomy, and your privacy.
There you go. Good
Yep.
presentation. She said when the states bend to the federal government, like you see all the sheriffs doing, like not one sheriff has told the federal government to get the hell out of their counties. They're all allowing this tyranny to take place.
Right.
That's
When
why-
they have the authority to say
Tell
no and get them out.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So states' rights. This is a republic, not a democracy. Right?
Yep.
So act like it.
It's time to start acting like it. We should have been acting like it. Like I said
That's
earlier,
right.
we'd have been acting like it when 2020 came, there would have been no election, right?
That's right.
Or
Well, there wasn't an election.
faux election. Yeah, or it wouldn't have been a faux election, right?
There wasn't a selection, Mike. Selection.
Selection, right?
That's because we don't pick the presidents. You think, like
Right.
you think they would allow you to do that? The subject
No.
to pick the president? Yeah. Okay. So I want to make sure. Okay, the next one we're going to go into some more. We're going to hear from Ron. Was it Ron Paul? I like Ron Paul personally. I think he's stands on business. I think he's actually one of the very few. However, he may be compromised. I don't know. But Rand Paul, he's going to expose the real ID scheme being pushed by fake conservatives acting like they're MAGA.
Well, get ready to have your privacy almost totally.
There is fake conservatives out there, guys. There's fake MAGA.
Well, get ready to have your privacy almost totally destroyed with this new Real ID boondoggle. Of course, it's been around since the Patriot Act, since after 9/11, trying to be shoved down our throats. Well, this week or last week, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced her department in May would be enforcing the Real ID law. Watch.
Hi, I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security.
Hey.
If you plan on traveling, we need your help to prevent delays and to prove your identity. Get a real ID.
She said if you plan on traveling, that's a constitutional right.
Starting May 7th, you will need a real ID to travel by air or to visit federal buildings in the United States. These IDs keep our country safe because they help prevent fraud and they enhance security. Please do your part to protect our country.
Your ID is going to enhance security?
Go today and don't delay. To learn more, go to dhs.gov/real-ID. Thank you.
Pretty girl, pretty smile, right?
Wow.
She wouldn't do us no harm.
Right.
She wouldn't want the worst for
Straight up
us.
propaganda.
Straight up.
propaganda. Yeah.
And then she did a little special ringtone right there.
Please do your part to protect our country. Go today and don't delay.
Go today and don't delay.
Don't delay.
Don't
Sign me up. Sign me up.
Take your B&B and get that damn shit now. That's what she should have said.
Right.
Look at that.
To learn more, go to dhs.gov/real-ID. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Ron Paul just published a new piece warning all of us about Real ID. Here it is. It's called Real ID, Phony Security, Real Authoritarianism. And of course, Dr. Paul, and you can watch the videos right after 9/11 on the floor of Congress saying, don't fall for this, that this would take away our privacy. That was then. This is now. It's taken all of these years to finally put this into place. And Dr. Ron Paul joins us now. Doctor, good to see you as always. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be with you again.
So, real authoritarianism. Why are, Republicans are running the show? They control everything. They control the White House. They control Congress. How are they allowing this to move forward? I thought Republicans were supposed to be against this.
What?
See, I don't know whether allowing is the right term. They're participating. It looks like they're doing it. But it is true. Some minority group has the handle on this and the authority to do it. They allow it to happen, and others haven't said too much. And it's just a shame. I guess the thing that annoys me most about this is for our own security. It's going to, kiss the criminals. Everything government does always has a positive. We're going to make you rich and safe, and peace is going to break out throughout the world, and everybody's going to benefit. It's not going to cost us anything. We'll just print the money, and you won't even know what's going to happen. Deficits don't matter. They lie through their teeth, and that is what is so aggravating. So now we have this coming up. They're doing this for our sake, which is another lie. And I don't know why they do it, because a lot of good people get involved in this, and they can't really believe that. And yes, somebody has to, whoever's pulling the final strings to let this go, must have a trick up their sleeve, because it's hard for me to believe that this is going to help you and me to be safer, because what we see is the government's intrusion, that they're going to have more regulations. You're going to have real IDs, like you might not even be able to get on an airplane in the United States without the real ID. What do you have, another week or two to get the real ID? So it is astounding that it happens. It's astounding that Congress does it. It's astounding that people go along with it. And they went along with, COVID, for a couple of years, and finally they woke up and did something about it. And the people said, enough is enough. But I think right now this thing is marching on, because we've been persuaded that the new administration wouldn't like somebody like that. How many of us would have predicted before the campaign Trump will be on our side on the real ID? But look at where we are today.
Yeah.
When you say it's real authoritarianism, for our audience, we've been trying to educate our audience on the real ID for a while now, and I don't know that we're doing a good job of it. I hope we are, but maybe our audience is aware of this. But if anyone watching right now doesn't understand what this thing is, can you explain why this is phony security and real authoritarianism? It's just an ID, Dr. Paul. It's just, just go along with it. It's just an ID.
Yeah, but all they want is the control and power over the people. So they're working for an opposite type of government than most of us. And I think the majority of Americans would, if you just put them up on the issues and not isolated and have it, shoved down their throats, most of them would just say, no, I don't like the government to do this. But they either feel helpless or they don't understand it, and they get by and it gets bigger. But very often they fall into that. Oh, maybe it does make sense. Maybe if we have this, and they're taking advantage of the opportunity of a lot of bad people that came into our country. They came in. I thought it was so bad. I thought it was an invasion and not a benefit. But it wasn't an excuse to ignore the safety and say, well, this will help make us safe from those bad people who are coming in here. And if they don't have the real ID, but they don't remember the 9/11. They didn't have a real ID. They got on the airplane and they used their own passports. So the smart government.
Good point.
Government wants all this stuff just for control. They want to control the people. They don't want any opposition. And I think that I first became aware of this in the 1970s. There was the Bank Secrecy Act. Of course, don't you want your accounts to be secret? Well, okay, if you reveal everything to the government and they'll take care of it. But the Bank Secrecy Act had nothing to do with secrecy. It was the bank taking over and for filling out more and more forms. And then we ended up with FinCEN, which has tremendous power and control. And they've made an effort recently to expand, just like they're expanding the Real ID. But they have too much information. They don't understand, and they don't trust people to take care of themselves. And they always play on it. What do you mean? If you didn't have food stamps and free medicine, wouldn't all people die? Yeah, then the government takes over and they say, well, they're really good doctors. Just look how much good they did with COVID. They always knew how many people should. We'll take them to the nursing homes and we'll give them all their vaccine. Oh, it didn't work. It did the opposite. So it's the way with so much economic policy, monetary policy, getting involved in wars. We go to wars for peace, strength through strength, and we go and then we have our empire, and but the one thing is it's limited. If people should lose enthusiasm for it, it's all coming to an end because this can't go on forever. And with a bankruptcy, that's when empires end, and we're seeing the cracks in the empire now, and the big hits will be seen by currency devaluation. And that's why we see gold. When I started looking at the monetary issue, gold was $35 an ounce, even though we weren't even allowed to own it. Now it's over $3,000 an ounce. It's even for me, how did it get here? And the world depends on that type of an assumption that the government will take care of us. They will keep us free. You have to sacrifice a little bit of freedom and you'll be safe. It's the whole idea that it's become known that the government is there to make us safe, and the government isn't there to make us safe. They can't possibly do it. The safety is supposed to, on our system, be taken care of by people, individuals, and that's why I think they slipped that Second Amendment in. People should take care of themselves and protect themselves. But anytime they argue it's for the people get sucked into it until it's easy to do it. It's easy to sell a program because it'll be free, but it's terribly hard to get out. Just think of getting out of the wars. How long did it take? And I watched this when I had been a draftee back in the 60s, and the Vietnam War went on. Korea was another one, and I look at the Middle East War, and then Afghanistan, and we're over there. Well, we have a president now said, I don't want to start war and I want to end war, and the bombs increase. They keep increasing the number of bombs they're dropping on them, and they say they're going to make us free and prosperous. I'll tell you what, people need to understand the principle of liberty and what it means to be responsible for oneself. And, I was very pleased when I campaigned for the presidency, the reception I got from that type of language. And the young people seemed to understand. And then when at the end of the speech, I say, you won't have taxes, you won't have this and this, and you can live your life. You could put in your bodies what you want, and the government's not going to tell you all this. And they loved it. But I thought they would wake up and say, yeah, but I said, but the one thing that you have to know, if you have your freedom to go about your way and you do well, but you try to do something, but you don't do well, you can't go crying to the government saying, the government, take care of me. You said you take care of me. Steal from somebody else and take care of me. My programs didn't work real well. So it's the assumption that people have to have responsibility for oneself if we expect the system to work. And I think in our early history, people looked at it that way.
Yeah, personal responsibility. We're not going to go crying to the government to prop us up with all sorts of different programs and to steal from different individuals. I mean, that's socialism, right? It's stealing from, it's picking winners and losers. It's propping up the ethanol corn lobby and choosing losers in another quadrant. When you look at the Real ID, I think people don't understand that we've been warning about this. This is really a dangerous step towards mass surveillance of the American people. I mean, it standardizes sort of personal information across all the states. It ties all together with this sort of personal, databases. Congressman Thomas Massey, friend of the show, said, This is proof that your physical person matches an entry in a digital database. Its power and purpose will be realized when everyone complies, but not before. So we'll all be sort of forced to comply.
Yeah, but he's one of the few that really has the understanding of that.
Yeah.
So he has to vote to make his point. But I'm sure I'll tell you one thing. He sleeps better at night than some of these other clowns that are bringing us down and just enforcing authoritarianism. And I think what happens is people reject the notion if they can't handle the idea of being free and responsible, but they don't want it. And they think that somebody else is going to take care of them, and it doesn't happen. But they're now looking at how this could be used to totally destroy the Second Amendment. In May, they're actually hinting that you might not even be able to get on a domestic airline without the proper ID, which is a super ID, as if the ID is going to protect us from a missile and all the nonsense that goes on. So it's to me, it's so sad that people have been indoctrinated. And I don't think the first half of our history it was nearly this bad. But I do date some of these tragic trends from the so-called progressive era. Where the indoctrination about the economic system, the idea that you have to have secret banking and a secret Federal Reserve that can print all the money and pass it out in secret. And nobody even knows with it. And then when the people say, well, we have to stop the inflation, so we got to do A, B, C. We have to take over because we have to feed the people. So they come in and use it as an excuse. And they never tell them. Well, I had people come to my office with the inflation problem. And to them, inflation is anything prices to go up, it's inflation. Well, it's a consequence of inflation. Prices go up, but they come in, and I said, well, what do you think we should do here in the Congress? And they said, send more money. They don't realize that it's the money debasement is the problem. So, but I blame the educational system on that. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding the difference between the authoritarian economic system versus a free market economic system. But I didn't get any hint of how the free market worked from my high school classes, my college classes, or anywhere in that area. It came from the introduction to the sources that taught Austrian free market economics, and mainly the Mises Institute that has provided the information. It was also the FEE Foundation for Economic Education, Leonard Reed. He provided the education by providing the books. He did it quietly, but literally influenced thousands of people. So I think there are a lot of good things happening. I think the internet has helped us tremendously in spreading this message that we need and building up confidence in the people. When I discovered some of these things, I say, this is pretty neat. They think just like I do. But what I was excited about was I discovered somebody else who already did and found out who had formulated a lot of these ideas about liberty.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of the internet. I just hope that we can marshal, voices right now and get out there and tell your members of Congress, you do not want this to be put in place. But it seems like there's just quiet among sort of like a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of the quote unquote new media people that are all sort of in the tank for President Trump. I mean, there's plenty of these like conservative shows out there, these new media shows, who aren't saying a thing about real ID.
Nope.
They're not saying a peep about it. And it's infuriating. You talk about taking away our Second Amendment rights with
tacit compliance.
This real ID. Our inability to travel. To me, this reminds me of the stories we hear about these 15-minute cities where you'll be limited in your movement. They know everything you're doing, every transaction you're making.
Smart
you
city.
Can't fly. You've flown too much this month. Your carbon footprint is too much. It's all tied to this like central database about your life. It's terrifying to me.
But the hypocrisy of those who promote these things, it's a powerful tool, because that was more or less what the ridicule of the hypocrisy of the far left on COVID and making fun but they themselves didn't follow the rules they were writing. And
Right.
even now, environmentally, the very wealthy, do you think they preserve gasoline and don't burn up fuel? And they want to regulate and make everybody have an electric car, thinking the electric cars are going to solve all our problems? Well, I want the market to solve these problems voluntarily. And there doesn't have to be many laws. You can write them on one page. You can't lie, cheat, steal, or kill. And those laws have been, believe it or not, they're natural laws. The natural law existed before they even had written law. That was the beginning of
natural law existed before they even had written law. Good point, Ron Paul.
history. That's amazing to me how early in known history, ancient history, it was recognized you shouldn't lie and cheat and kill, and you shouldn't do this stuff. And yet what? And we're still not allowed. People aren't allowed to. People do pretend that we shouldn't do it. So individuals might get into a little trouble because the people who are in power, they have a license to lie, cheat, steal, and kill. Yep. And they run the operation. All you have to do is look at the death and destruction and the wars that we've been involved with, especially since World War II.
Oh, it's devastating. Dr. Ron Paul, always great to see you. I want our...
Good job, Ron Paul.
Yep, that was excellent.
Good job, Ron Paul. Right, so we're talking about the wars and the people that end up getting killed, women, children, men, innocent.
Okay, so I want to talk about the real ID in this sense a little bit because somebody brought it up in the chat just a few minutes ago. Said that we thought that Trump is the liquidator. Well, Trump is a liquidator. He is liquidating all the assets of the corporation. With the real ID, guess what? You're an asset of the corporation. You will be liquidated. They've already proven it to you. Of course, we're under mass surveillance. They think they own us all. Open your mouth. Wake the hell up. I know many of you watching and in the chat are. But there's those that are just not, and hopefully they'll hear this, right? I just wanted to add that a little bit, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because tacit compliance, you got to speak out. You can go to Trump's True Social he has, if that's anybody still on there. I don't know. I'm not on there anymore. X. And let them know. Repeal the Patriot Act. Repeal the Smith-Mundt Act. No federal overreach with the state ID, real ID. Those are things that you can be telling Poppy Trumpo, right? Yep. You got to speak out. You got to say no. We're not doing that. This is a republic. I know you voted for a dictator. I get it. But we have to speak out against it because we've been sucked into this via the mainstream media, the Mockingbird media, right? Right here we have the Misfit Patriot. I'm okay with as many dead kids as it takes to stop Hamas. Right? I'm not okay with it. Hamas is Israel.
No, I couldn't believe someone even typed that out.
This is war, guys. This is what we do when we try to get one terrorist in an apartment building. They blow up the whole damn apartment building. Now, this is what your soldiers have to see. Marines, Army, that's what they have to see. So the Synagogue of Satan is planning and preparing and waiting for the right opportunity to start a major war. And what did Taj say the other night? Taj Tree-Bay, he said, if you want to know what's going on, pay attention to Netanyahu. That's your president. Right? Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has pledged to destroy Iran's nuclear reactors and enrichment facilities, warning that action must be taken before it's too late. He insists that Iran's entire nuclear infrastructure must be dismantled. The centrifuges destroyed and all nuclear material completely removed. Keep in mind, Israel murdered JFK because he stood in the way of getting them of them getting nukes. Pretty ironic that they're now using it as an excuse to launch global war. Right? So as a U.S. combat veteran who's seen the true cost of war, I'll say this clearly. America's sons and daughters are not Israel's attack dogs. Netanyahu's threats and chest-pounding rhetoric are reckless and dangerous, dragging us closer to a war that serves his agenda, not ours. We're not shedding one more American blood to bail out corrupt foreign politicians or to prop up endless conflicts overseas. If Netanyahu wants war, he can go fight it himself without a dime of American money or a single American life. We are done being used as pawns, launched World War III for someone else's ambitions. My oath was to defend America, not foreign governments, not lobbyists, not politicians trying to drag the world into chaos. Stay the hell out of it. Right. So we're talking about. All right. The next thing up is. Let me go over here, see what we got, because I got it in order. So we went over the real ID. Check. Check. We see the authoritarianism with that. The next thing is this one. ICE can now enter your home without a warrant to look for migrants, quote unquote, DOJ memo says. So if they think that you have a migrant, they can just come in there without a warrant, kick in your door and all that shit. This is exactly what I've voiced a lot of concern about, that the Trump administration would throw the Bill of Rights to the wind in their zeal to look, quote unquote, look for illegals. No ICE agents are entering my home without a warrant. I can assure you of that. And we should all have the same stance. The hunt for illegals does not suspend the Constitution for Americans. Why is that so important?
That's
because
right.
once you give
It's all a test, right? Everything's a test.
Once you give the federal government an inch, they take a mile. Now, this is the problem, reaction, solution. Remember that? Problem, we get the reaction, and they come up with the solution. They create the problem. They bust in all these people, the NGOs, your governors, Abbott, DeSantis, they all bust in all these people, spent billions of dollars, busting all these. So problem, reaction, solution equals what? Tyranny. Buckle up, Buttercup. We tried telling you to stop falling for the mainstream media, military industrial complex, MK Ultra propaganda. ICE can now enter your home without a warrant to look for migrants. DOJ memo says on March 14th, Pam Bondi signed a DOJ memo. So she's not going after Epstein and whoever trafficked children. None of that. We're not doing none of that. They're going after the people low on the totem pole. And if what did Jimmy Dore said? Anyone, if you're worried about somebody lower on the totem pole, more than likely you're being manipulated by somebody higher on the totem pole. So on March 14th, Pam Bondi signed a DOJ memo outlining how ICE can enter any home they want without a warrant and search the property for migrants. It's amazing this didn't get any coverage. This is a blatant violation of the Fourth Amendment and needs to be pushed back on, plain and simple. Not because removing illegal migrants is wrong, but because this leads down a road which is truly indefensible. I shouldn't need to get into this details about why this is a very slippery slope, but the scale of government overreach here is a terrifying glimpse into the future American police state, that they will have you believe this is just for migrants. But that is only an excuse. and sets a horrific precedent for the DHS to come to your home and trample your rights in an unprecedented manner. Just imagine the ramifications of such a draconian directive and what this can be used for in the future. Think things like gun confiscation. In other words, if you open the door for this to take place with the migrants, guess what? You open the door for gun confiscation, your Second Amendment. You can open the door for forced quarantine. And then you can insert another reason here. You can insert more and more. Anyone can be deemed a migrant, folks, just like anyone can be deemed a domestic terrorist, quote unquote, like J6. It's only a label used to justify unlawful force. They can and will use this to go after anyone they want at any time, anywhere, for any reason. It is truly scary to see the authoritarian measures being taken by the second Trump 2.0 administration. This is not what I voted for. If you are speaking up against this, if you are not speaking up against this, then you are falling in line with absolute tyranny, right? So that's why it's important to speak up against the first violation of anyone's constitutional rights, not when it's a million people, Americans down the line. It's too late then. Okay. Did you ever think that the second Trump administration would take the already super unconstitutional Patriot Act and inject it with a healthy double dose of steroids? Did you vote for that? All right, we're going to go into Ohio voters will get to vote on qualified immunity ban. This is for your law enforcement officers out there that think you can get away with murder.
Welcome once again to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto.
I've got a story here, which I believe James was the first to send me, but a lot of people sent it. Thank you very much. It's a big deal out of Ohio from the Associated Press. Julie Carr Smith wrote it. Ohio Attorney General certifies proposed ban on police immunity after loss at the U.S. Supreme Court. Prompted by a defeat at the U.S. Supreme Court, the Ohio Attorney General on Tuesday said he's putting aside his objections and allowing a proposed constitutional amendment that would end qualified immunity for police and other government employees to move forward. This is happening in Ohio. So you have to understand there's a process. If people want to put something on the ballot, they've got to do something such as draft a proposed law, go out and get signatures for it, get enough signatures in the proper places and so on, depends on the state you're in, and then it gets put on the ballot. But that process can get tricky because when you ask people to sign a petition and you're gathering the signatures for that, when they're signing that, there needs to be on that paper a description of what the ballot proposal would say. Quite often, there's not enough room to put the whole thing there, so they put a summary there. And likewise, they'll put a summary on the ballot itself. And they'll often fight about whether or not the summary is an accurate summary. That's one example of things they can. It's simply about whether or not this could get certified and move forward in the election process. The AG's action came the same day the Supreme Court declined to stay a preliminary injunction issued by a U.S. District Court in Ohio, which sided with the backers of the measure that their First Amendment rights to free speech had likely been violated. Ohio's nearly a century-old ballot initiative process at risk of being permanently declared unconstitutional caused Yost to move immediately to dismiss the appeal that he had filed in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which, by the way, is the same circuit that I'm in Michigan. The AG had repeatedly rejected proposed summary language for the measure as not being a fair and accurate representation of what the measure would do. And see, this is a problem because many people don't know the story of qualified immunity. They don't know what it means. So if you simply say, we have a ballot proposal to eliminate qualified immunity, what that is, and summarizing that could be a problem. Lower courts found that the AG had placed a severe burden on organizers when it came to communicating with voters and meeting the filing deadline. They also rejected the AG's argument that the case belonged to the Ohio Supreme Court. And that is an interesting argument that you'll see pop up from time to time, where there's an issue and they're fighting over the interpretation of a state constitution or something in a state constitution. And so it'll be working its way through the state courts, and somebody goes, yeah, but that also invokes the U.S. Constitution, which means that we can take it to federal court. And I've seen it before where a federal court has said, no, we're going to let the state court deal with this. But the issue of elections is something, it's a fundamental right you have to participate in the elections. So an attorney for the organizers says the AG has demonstrated that he can't be trusted with that amount of power. It's a lot of power to give any state official, especially an elected official. The Supreme Court made the right decision. So the AG issued a statement saying he planned to work with the state legislature to craft legislation to reform the ballot initiative summary process to protect the integrity of Ohio's elections and freedom of speech. The constitutional amendment would end qualified immunity, special legal protections that prevent people from suing over claims that the police or government actors or workers violated their constitutional rights. It proceeds next to the Ohio Ballot Board. And by the way, it is government workers here, but they'll often refer to people as government actors, meaning somebody who's acting in a role or a position of a government office. So they're acting on behalf of the government. Therefore, their actions can lead to something which might get them sued, and in which case they would try to invoke qualified immunity if they've got it. So there's that. But I mean, I can tell you in most recent years, there have been a bunch of these fights, including a few famous ones in Michigan. And I remember one in Michigan where they got into a fight over the font size on the circulating petitions that they're using to gather signatures to put something on the ballot. And I mean, the statute does say, you know, that the proposal's got to be written in such a way that it summarizes properly what you're trying to put on the ballot. And then it'll say things like, and it must be written in this size font and blah, 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 blah. And it turns out that somebody, and this has been a few years, but somebody had printed these things off using some kind of word processing program. And they had chosen the correct font according to the word processor. But when the word processor then fed that into a printer and the printer printed it, if you were to compare that font size to the font size that was done by, like, say, a typesetter in the old days, actually working with, you know, either a linotype machine or the type of set, the typeset that you'd set by hand, they were actually off by just, you know, fractions of an inch. And then the question becomes, are we really more worried about the font size, or are we more worried about people being able to understand what they're agreeing to, what they're trying to put on the ballot? But what happened here was the AG had, you know, said, I don't think that this is a proper thing, that this should proceed. And a court said, no, this is proper. It should proceed. And the U.S. Supreme Court took a look at it and said, we're not going to interfere. So that means that the last position it was in is how it's going to go, which, there you go. So the AG says, fine, we'll put it on the ballot. So what this means is that if you're in Ohio, at least as of right now, the issue of qualified immunity is going to be on the ballot, meaning you can vote for this amendment that would abolish it in Ohio. And I've mentioned recently a couple times how things I like to describe as pendulums. So the mood of the people on a particular topic can go way over to one side, and you're like, wow, this is extreme. And then especially when crazy things start happening over at one end, then the mood starts swinging back the other way. So the pendulum with qualified immunity has started to swing back. And that's largely because we hear about these crazy cases where police officers apparently do things that are questionable, and people say, I'd like to file a lawsuit over that. And the court just says, no, you can't do that. And they just toss it. It'll never get to a jury, or it's going to toss it because, as a matter of law, you cannot sue them for that because of qualified immunity. So here's the thing. There's going to be a huge battle over this. You think this is a battle that made it to the Supreme Court? No. This is not the battle. The battle is going to be between now and Election Day. Because what's going to happen is all these entities with an interest in qualified immunity are all going to focus on Ohio, and Ohio now becomes the battleground state on this issue. Because if it passes in Ohio, a lot of other states are going to go, hey, we could do that too. But if it doesn't pass in Ohio, then they're going to go, hey, cool, we stopped it. But if it passes in Ohio, Ohio then becomes the laboratory. They become the experiment. We can watch what happens in Ohio. It'll take a little while, but we can watch what happens in Ohio and see if the world comes to an end or not. Because that's one of the types of arguments that the law enforcement community is going to make. And that is, if you take away the qualified immunity, we can't do our jobs. Bullshit. And all heck is going to break loose.
Bullshit.
All sorts of heck are going to break loose. Now,
no, once they lose qualified immunity,
once they lose, when one state tries something, the other states can step back and go, hey,
once they lose qualified immunity, then your constitutional rights will be more respected. They'll act differently. They'll do everything they can to not be sued, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's watch this for a little while and see what happens. And we'll see what happens. But I feel sorry for the people of Ohio. And here's why. Because during the election campaign that this is on the ballot for, you're going to be seeing ads on both sides put up by special interest groups who are going to bombard you with crazy messages on both sides. None of this down the middle stuff. No. You're going to be seeing ad after ad after ad that'll take this to the absurd proposition on both ends. Without qualified immunity, you know, it will become a lifeless hellscape. And of course, with qualified immunity, you know, we're living in a police state where they're running rampant over us. And so you're going to see, I can't even imagine what's going to happen with the advertising on this issue. It's going to get crazy. But again, it's just the people of Ohio. So congratulations. But interestingly, people got together and got enough signatures to put this on the ballot. The AG said, I don't think they've done it properly. And it went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And it looks like the AG now has to back down and go, okay, we'll put that on the ballot and see what happens. And will be interesting to see what happens. So James and everybody else, thanks for sending that from the Associated Press. Julie Carr Smith, Ohio Attorney General certifies proposed ban on police immunity after loss at the U.S. Supreme Court. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later.
There you go. So once the qualified immunity is lost, then you have them. They're going to come at you differently. They're going to treat you differently. They're going to treat you better. Then
absolutely, and they'll also be much easier to inform, right? Because they still need to be informed properly, right?
Who? The law enforcement? They know the Constitution.
Yeah, they know the Constitution, but yeah. That doesn't mean they, still don't know that when they pull you over to write you a ticket where there's no victim involved,
right?
That
Yeah.
At any rate, we got to keep going. It is working out in a lot of areas, right? The immunity piece is huge because they are personally liable. That's according to the law, even their law, Admiralty Maritime Law.
Yep. All right. This is my last little piece, and I'm going to do this one last time. I've shared this before, but I think people are missing it.
Oh, this is good. Yeah, I love this. We have shared it.
I'm just going to play
a couple of times.
I'm just going to play it a few minutes so that you can understand what 3-dimension is, your 4th dimension, and your 5th dimension, which is your in and out. I'm going to pause it here in a minute. We're going to do a little exercise.
Value is not based on what you own or what you have. In fact, I'll drop this jewel on you real quick. Real value is based on what you can do without. It's not about what you can accumulate. It's how functionable are you with nothing. And we can't function on nothing, so that becomes the scale. How low can you go? How deep can you go? Because after a while, if you really become a spiritual being, you don't rely on the world for nothing. Nothing. You enter the world, but you are not dependent upon the world. You're dependent upon invisible forces. What are the invisible forces? Love. People can't see love. They're too busy watching hate. It's all about your perception. If you see love, you see love. I'll say it again. If you see love, if you can see it, this is love right here. I'm seeing love. She, in her own mind, may believe I'm not love. Love is bigger than me. I'm just who I am. No, that's in her head. She's only a dream character in my perception. She could be God for all I know. We don't know who anybody is, so why can't she be God? We don't know where God is, when God is, how God is, so why she can't be God? This woman right here, I choose with my perception to see her as God. This is an ancient African technique. God was never outside of your perception. God was never outside of what you thought. That's why Western man came and said, there is no God, they're just making it up. Right. But God is the greatest human invention in human history. And the reason being, the reason Africans created God is so that humanity in its infinity would never run out of something to rise to. This is why God exists. If you don't have God, you don't rise. There is nothing human about technology. Sorry.
Nothing human about technology.
Nothing human about it. And this is what I want to say in terms of your spirit. What can you see? This is God to me. And I respect her and will treat her just like that. That's my perception of her. Now, she can do something to break that perception. She can do something to enhance it. What if she knew that I thought she was God? There'd be something in her that would try to live up to the image that I see of her. There'd be something in her that when she approached me, she would at least have to either deny God or become. This is how, as a community, we treated each other. If there is no God, then we are not family.
Y'all heard that?
The only way we can be brothers or sisters is if we have the same parent.
Y'all heard that?
Think. We cannot call ourselves brothers or sisters if we don't have the same mother or father. When God is the eternal mother, we become all brothers and sisters. When we all say, yes, I am part of this idea called God, not a man in the sky, not even a metaphor, not even a spirit in a separate consciousness. No, we don't have to get there yet. Let's just make God up right now, like our ancestors did. Nobody told them what God was. What God was your dead father. What God was your deceased mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, ancestor, builder of the tribe. This was the God. And when we got rid of God and we stopped worshiping that God and started worshiping their God, we lost our spiritual power.
You heard that?
If you have order, You don't break laws. Gravity is an order. You don't break that law. Breathing is an order. There's an exercise where, we can say this, rock star energy drink. Wow, I just put that in history. See how quick history come up right there. Rock star energy drink. Those that want to do the exercise, we're going to say rock star to ourselves without opening our mouths, without saying anything outside. We're going to say this to ourselves. We're going to say rock star to ourselves. Don't say it out loud at the count of 3. 1, 2.
We're going to do this exercise, right? Don't open your mouth. Say it within. Ready?
3.
Say it.
Okay. Now the question to ask, if you said rock star in your mind, the question to ask is, what voice is that? What voice is that? What voice just spoke? You just said rock star without moving your mouth at all. On top of that, you on top of saying rock star, you heard yourself say rock star. How can you hear yourself say rock star and no vibration of sound has happened? See, this puts a different perspective on what sound actually is. And what memory is. Memory's not in the brain, memory's in the soul. The only thing you take with you after this life is your memories or your knowledge, your experiences. That's the only thing you take. Unless you study Egypt culture, they believe you can take all this stuff with you on the other side. Just as a side note. But if you said rock star in your mind or in your being is the truth statement. In your being, what was that voice? What was the voice that spoke? And then you heard yourself speaking. But these ears did not hear you say anything because your mouth didn't move. So the ears didn't hear it, the mouth did not move, but you spoke and you heard yourself speaking. If you close your eyes, you can see this better. If you close your eyes and put this image in another sight, if you close your eyes, you can still see this. What is the sight that can see your future? These two eyes don't see the future. These two eyes don't see the past. Yet you can see your past and you can see your future. And you can actually see your past. What is the sight that can see beyond time? Don't give it away. What is this is an ancient meditation. This is an ancient meditation that I am not the flesh. I am the energy, the consciousness, the being in the flesh. And this is proof. This is no faith. This is not religion. This is actual fact. You can speak
without
moving your mouth. You can hear without ears. You can see without eyes. So what happens when these eyes, this mouth, and this ear drops off into the grave? These other senses are all you're left with. Death is an illusion. Once you realize this, you live your life more courageously. Now, no one wants to die before their time, so you try to protect yourself. But know that this body is the limitation of you. It is not your zenith. It is not your ultimate. Your ultimate is that voice that just said rock star. That voice that just said rock star without nothing physical moving, that person is immortal. That person is not here with you. Let's go deeper. The body is in, 3 dimensions, right? Forward, back, right, left, up, down, and time. 4th dimension, 3 dimensions plus time. That's our physical reality. Front, back, right, left, up, down, that's 3D plus time. What happened to in and out? Look at the east, look at the
in and out is your 5D, the immortal being.
English thought, back, forth, right, left, up, down, no in and out. No in and out. What is in and out? Rock star. Rock star says, I exist without the body. So where is this other existence?
5D.
Where is it? It's not here. It's not in 3-dimensional space where you really are. The person that said this is in a whole different dimension. Just switch a little bit. Talk to yourself more. Affirm to yourself more. Don't move none of that. No, close this down and go within and say, I am the greatest ... ever. I have all my needs coming with speed. I am a being of love and light and knowledge. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Whatever it is, have your affirmation on your tongue. Or, in your being. This is how the gods created this whole reality. The first humans, imagine, the first humans, they came from inner space. They came out. Study the Anunnakis. They came out of inner space. Not from outer space, inner space. Rock star. Before there was a body, there was this voice traveling in this voice's dimension. To get here to the earth, the inner voice created this outer extension of itself to be in this dimension. Once you realize that you are not just in this dimension, but you're also in another dimension, you now are free. Because whatever happens to you here in this dimension is not your only reality. See, this is how Jesus was able to get beaten and brutalized and hang on the cross. He wasn't here. He was the rock star. Inside, he went to the inner man. Do what you want with the body. I'm not here. Now, once you realize that level of consciousness, where you are officially, you identify yourself as the spirit, not the flesh. You are the inner voice, not the outer voice. Once you become the inner voice, now your outer voice has power. Now when you speak, it's not just a shell speaking. There's a being speaking through the shell. And this is where you heal all sickness in your body. This is where you command reality to work with you, and it works according to your consciousness. Why? Because it's not a shell that's speaking. There's a real being in the shell that is speaking. And when the real being speaks, all nature and the universe responds. People are realizing.
And that's all I got.
That's powerful. Yes.
Become the inner voice, not the outer. A lot of people. Not everybody can handle that. A little too much.
That's just some real time here and now boom right there.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. You can hear without ears. You can speak without your tongue. You can see without your eyes.
Yeah, you can see your future and your past. Who can see your future and past?
rock star.
Yep.
That's it.
God can see your future and your past. That voice. The body's a limitation. So this goes in to say that if we lost a loved one, folks, this isn't, you didn't lose them. They just transitioned. They don't stop existing. So don't stop talking to them. Right?
That's right.
Right on. Right on. You know, some really good information shared with you tonight. Right on from the hierarchy of law to the deep state map, right, which included the hierarchy of law and its surroundings as it climbed the pyramid or the totem pole, as you know, which is now known as really. And you know, you got to know your place. When you put your totem pole out there, you definitely don't want to be at the bottom of it, right? But that's where we've been in the 3D. And we all strive to be a higher version of ourselves tomorrow than we were today. And, you know, that's has a lot to do with redemption each and every day. Self-reflect, self-governance, and knowing that you as a sovereign, the law comes from you, for you. And that is huge because that's Rockstar, right? That's not just a shell speaking, but the inner being. Then you walk it out. You learn and you grow. I hope that everybody enjoyed tonight's show. I know I myself, I certainly did. It's been a good time sharing with everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Hopefully at 7, barring any complications throughout the day. Everybody have a great night. We love you all.
Good night, everyone.